YNW Melly's bond hearing just exploded into a full-blown showdown as the judge went off on him and his legal team right in the middle of court.
I didn't ask for anything. I don't understand your continued behavior, speaking out of turn, yelling at someone that's not true.
Did this heated courtroom moment ruin YNW Melly's chance at freedom? After being locked up for 6 years, with tensions running high and the death penalty still on the table, this moment could change everything for the Florida rapper. What really went down in court is wild, so let's break it all down. The high-stakes bail hearing. Before we dive into what happened in that courtroom, let's talk about who YNW Melly really is. Born Jamel Maurice Demons, Melly has been in jail since February 2019. He's facing serious charges, 2 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors say he killed his close friends, Anthony Williams, aka YNW Sackchaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., aka YNW Juvie, back in October 2018. The DA claims that Melly and his friend, Cortland Henry, aka YNW Bortland, shot Williams and Thomas inside a car in Miramar, Florida, and then tried to make it look like a drive-by. Melly's first trial ended in a mistrial in July 2023 after the jury couldn't agree on a verdict. Now, with the second trial set for September 10, 2025, Melly's legal team has been working hard to get him out on bail before it starts. This bail hearing we're talking about is Melly's second chance at getting released before the trial. According to court records, his lawyers have been preparing this motion since November 2024, arguing that a lot has changed since he was first arrested. So what actually happened in court on May 6, 2025? The hearing started with Judge David Porter reviewing past motions in the case. The courtroom was tense as both sides prepared to argue their points. Melly's legal team, including attorneys, Mr. Benjamin and Ms. Liberty, came in strong, trying to convince the judge that Melly should be released before his next trial date.
Silver Shine present for the state. Mr. Adelson, Mr. Benjamin.
Things got intense when Melly's defense team tried to bring in a new expert witness, Dr. Cuthbert, who had just been added to the case. But the prosecution quickly shut it down. They immediately objected, saying they weren't given enough notice about the witness and hadn't received any of the paperwork or reports she might have prepared. The judge agreed with the prosecution and blocked Dr. Cuthbert from testifying. That loss forced Melly's defense team to change their whole strategy and focus only on legal arguments, without any help from expert testimony. One of the biggest issues in the hearing was about suppressed evidence. Back on December 21, 2023, Judge John Murphy had ruled that some evidence couldn't be used because it was collected in a way that violated Melly's constitutional rights. Now, the defense argued that this same evidence shouldn't be allowed. During the bail hearing, the prosecution wanted to use it anyway.
I wouldn't call it an exclusionary rule. I'm saying it should not be considered by the court because the court, the law of this case is it was suppressed and it cannot be used by the state in any way.
After a heated back and forth, Judge Porter sided with the defense, ruled that he wouldn't consider the evidence Judge Murphy had already thrown out. This was a big win for Melly's legal team because it meant some damaging evidence wouldn't be used to decide if he should get bail. There, the hearing focused on exactly what evidence had been suppressed. They went over different warrants tied to Melly's social media accounts, cell phone records, and other digital info. Both sides spent a lot of time figuring out which pieces of evidence were still allowed and which ones were off limits because of the suppression order. One of the biggest takeaways was that the cell site location data from October 26, 2018, the day the alleged murders happened, was still allowed. That meant the judge could still consider this possibly incriminating info when deciding on bail.
Cell site location remains in October 26, 2018. Correct.
Once they sorted out what evidence could be used, both sides jumped into their main arguments about the proof evident, presumption great rule. This standard comes up in Florida bail hearings for serious cases like Melly's. Basically, if the evidence shows strong proof and a clear presumption that the person is guilty, the judge can deny bail. But even if that standard is met, the judge still has the power to grant bail in special situations. The prosecution argued that even without the suppressed evidence, their case was still strong. They pointed to the evidence that was still allowed, like cell tower data, ballistics, and contradictions in what Melly's co-defendant Cortland Henry had said.
Certainly, Judge, and that's the case law provided to the court. There's actually a presumption of correctness as to Judge Murphy's order, that there was a proof evidence presumption rate. So really what the court is considering now is just effectively has that suppressed evidence that the court is now considering changed the state's position where proof evidence is no longer present. We believe that proof evidence still remains strongly present because, as the court was noting, all the information from the day of the homicide remained.
The defense clapped back with several key arguments. They emphasized that the jury in the first trial couldn't reach a unanimous verdict, suggesting that the evidence wasn't as strong as the prosecution was, claiming they also put Detective Mark Moretti on blast, alleging that he had tried to suborn perjury. Plus, they brought up new search warrants that had been obtained after Judge Murphy's suppression order, suggesting the prosecution was playing dirty.
Purposes of the proof evidence, I have some factors. I know Ms. Liberty has that. If I could, Judge, I believe that the rulings by Judge Murphy, that starting with the testimony of Michelle Boutros, which the Judge Murphy ordered the state that when she testifies, they cannot cross-examine her in any further proceedings. The state appealed it on a motion, on an appeal, a writ of some sort, I forgot which one. And that was, and I attached it to my supplement. The fourth denied their seeking relief on that issue.
The defense then laid out their proposed conditions for Melly's release. They suggested a minimal monetary bond with several conditions. Melly would stay at a new crib, no straps allowed. He'd rock a GPS ankle monitor and would have 24-hour security. Watching him, they argued these conditions would keep the public safe, guarantee Melly shows up for court, and maintain the integrity of the judicial process.
So, the conditions in the jail aren't going to spend there 6 years, Judge. The Constitution says everybody gets the presumption of innocence. 6 years. We're going now past 6 years. He has substantial ties to the community. His mom, his grandma, his sister, his brother, his friends, his grandpa. They're all here supporting him. The special conditions are there, and that's what we get out of the different case law. That proof of agreement is one thing, you go to the second. Are there special conditions that we can put in place to protect those three things? Make sure he's present here.
The prosecution wasn't buying it, though they emphasized how serious the charges were. 2 counts of first-degree murder, and also brought up witness tampering allegations against Melly. They claimed the risk of flight was mad high, given the potential death penalty, noting that many countries wouldn't send him back if he was facing capital punishment.
The concern is if he goes somewhere where he cannot be returned. As the court has repeatedly pointed out, Mr. Demons is charged with the death penalty. Many countries in the world will not extradite back to the United States if they are facing the death penalty here.
The defense team fired back at these concerns by emphasizing that the proposed security measures would make it virtually impossible for Melly to bounce. They also noted that his record label was ready to put up the paper for any monetary bond that might be imposed.
As to your comment, in light of my client's popularity, we opted not to put somebody on to give you the address of where he'd be living at. We were going to proffer, I would give that in camera as far as where he would live at. He would be residing with his sister and with his brother. Give you the address. We would have the security detail. All of that can be given to you in camera. As far as the second amount, his record label would be if there was a monetary bond in place. His record label is agreeing to put the monetary bond up for him. So the financials would be covered because it would be coming from his record label.
As the hearing wrapped up, Judge Porter thanked both sides for their arguments and said he needed time to think everything over before making a decision about Melly's bail. He didn't give a date for when he'd announce his ruling, which left both Melly's team and the prosecution waiting for answers. The hearing quickly became a hot topic online. On May 8, 2025, reports started circulating that Melly had been granted a $500,000 bond for one of the 6 charges he's facing. But that wasn't enough to get him out. He'd need bond for all charges to be released. According to XXL magazine, judge is expected to make a full decision on the bail request in the coming days. As of now, fans and legal experts are anxiously waiting to see if Melly will finally get a taste of freedom after 6 years behind bars, or if he'll have to stay locked up until his retrial in September. This bail hearing is just one part of Melly's long and complicated legal battle. The stakes couldn't be higher: temporary freedom before trial, or continued lockup with the threat of the death penalty still looming. YNW Melly's legal and street history. Melly's run-ins with the law go way back, long before his 2018 double murder case. His legal troubles started when he was just 16 years old. In October 2015, he was arrested for shooting near Vero Beach High School in Florida. Reports say he fired at 3 students near the school. Thankfully, no one was hit. But young Jamel Demons was charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of firing a gun in public.
Yeah, I had went to jail for the school shooting thing I did.
School shooting thing?
Yeah, I was shooting out of school.
Melly was convicted and did about a year in juvie, where he got his GED. This early incident came back to haunt him during his come up with an interrogation video from the arrest surfacing in 2023 that showed a tense exchange between young Melly and the boys in blue in a 2019 interview. Melly broke down the situation behind the school shooting incident, describing a scenario involving a strap he had brought to school that was allegedly taken by someone else.
Nigga had my gun, you know what I'm saying? I had brought it to school one day, then he told that I had that bitch at school, and he fought. I guess he had his homegirls follow me. I guess when I went to the office to get searched, they came back, they doubled back and had the pistol. I ain't never paid attention to it because I was still trying to find out who the fuck had my shit till one day I found out they had my shit. And the next day I had to bust it.
After getting out of juvie, Melly kept getting into trouble. In 2017, he violated his probation and had to spend several months locked up. Then, on June 30th, 2018, he got arrested in Fort Myers, Florida for weed possession, having a gun as a convicted felon and drug paraphernalia. Just a few months later, on January 3rd, 2019, he was picked up again in Fort Myers, this time for having weed on him. But those charges were minor compared to the case that's kept him locked up for the past 6 years. On February 13th, 2019, Melly turned himself in after being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The charges stem from the deaths of his close friends Anthony Williams, aka YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., aka YNW Juvie, who were killed on October 26, 2018. The alleged details of the case have been under a microscope ever since. Prosecutors say Melly and his friend Cortland Henry, aka YNW Bortland, shot both men inside a Jeep SUV, then staged the scene to look like a drive-by. They allegedly drove around with the bodies in the car before taking them to the hospital and telling cops a made-up story. The prosecution's case is based on forensic evidence like phone tracking data, ballistics, and blood spatter analysis, all of which they say proves the shots came from inside the car, not outside as the defense claims. Over time, the state's jury has also focused on possible gang ties. Prosecutors say Melly was connected to the G-Shine Bloods and that the murders somehow helped the gang. During the first trial, a gang expert named Danny Polo testified about coded messages in Melly's texts, claiming Melly was recruited by gang members. Prosecution also showed texts that suggested Melly and Sack Chaser had beef before the murders. In August 2018, about 2 months before the killings, Melly allegedly asked his mom for a gun due to tensions with Sack Chaser's family. Other messages hinted at drama inside the YNW crew, Sack Chaser possibly feeling pushed aside as the group became more successful. One of the most damaging pieces of evidence was an Instagram message where Melly allegedly told someone named Peasy Gambino, "I did that shish." The defense pushed back, saying the spelling didn't match how Melly usually types and that the message could be misinterpreted. The case has also been full of legal twists. In December 2023, Judge John Murphy ruled that some evidence had to be thrown out because it was collected in a way that violated Melly's constitutional rights. This evidence mainly involved material from outside the murder timeline, like info the state used to suggest gang involvement. Then, in October 2023, things got even messier when lead prosecutor Christine Bradley was removed from the case. She was accused of hiding details about Detective Mark Moretti's credibility. A witness named Michelle Bras claimed she saw Moretti trying to convince someone to lie under oath, a serious accusation that raised more questions about the case. To make things even more complicated, Melly's lawyers found out in April 2025 that the prosecution had quietly gotten new search warrants for some of the same evidence Judge Murphy had already suppressed. These new warrants, signed by Judge E. Bober in March 2024, weren't shared with the defense until just days before the bail hearing. Melly's legal team called this forum shopping, basically accusing the prosecution of judge hopping to get what they wanted, and said it was serious misconduct.
Concerning this case, that appears was in their possession for at least a year, if not longer. And as you're looking at those, at the defendant's exhibit, positive one, I want you to know that if you look at the docket sheet, it took us 4 hours to organize the warrants because they were commingled. Warrant number 1 had pages from warrant number 2 or 3. And it literally took Mr. Benjamin's judicial assistant, promoter, 4 hours to commingle all those pages because originally they came in so convoluted.
The first trial started in June 2023, but ended in a mistrial on July 22, 2023, after the jury couldn't agree on a verdict. Reports later revealed that the jury was split 9-3, not for first-degree murder, for manslaughter, which is a less serious charge than what the prosecution was pushing for. Apparently, things got messy during deliberation, and one juror was even accused of using homophobic slurs. Then in October 2023, prosecutors hit Melly with new charges for witness tampering. They claimed Melly used members of the Bloods gang to stop his ex-girlfriend Mariah Hamilton and her mom, Felicia Holmes, from testifying. According to prosecutors, this involved phone calls and letters, all coordinated through another inmate named Terrence Mathisi. Reports say there were around 60 calls between Mathisi and YNW Bortland, where they used coded language to talk about keeping the witnesses from showing up in court. Melly's defense team pushed back hard on these new charges. During the bail hearing, they argued that the timing was suspicious, that the charges were dropped right when Melly was asking for bail again. They also pointed out that Mariah Hamilton was never legally required to testify in the first place, so the tampering charges didn't hold much legal weight. Another big issue in Melly's case is Florida's death penalty law. In 2023, the state changed the rules so that someone can get the death penalty if just 8 out of 12 jurors agree, instead of needing all 12 like before. This new law has raised concerns about whether it's even constitutional and could have a huge impact on Melly's future if he's convicted in the retrial. Throughout everything, Melly has kept saying he's innocent. He hasn't talked much about the case publicly, but some people have pointed to his song, "Murder on My Mind," which came out before the alleged killing. Prosecutors have even tried to use the song's violent lyrics as evidence.
I was in these apartments at first, Orangewood, and I moved to like Whisper Palm, some little like Mexican houses.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Interestingly, in a 2019 interview right after getting out from a previous jail stint, Melly revealed that he had written "Murder on My Mind" while locked up. So "Murder on My Mind," when did you write that? And what was going on in your head when you wrote it? First time I got locked up.
So "Murder on My Mind," when did you write that, and what was going on in your head when you wrote it?
First time I got locked up.
You wrote it while you were in jail?
Yeah. But I ain't trying to even talk about that anymore.
It was too crazy?
Yeah, it wasn't really, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I made it when I was locked up, though.
Mm-hmm. And then when you got out for a little while and you were able to record it and put it out?
Yeah.
And then you went in again because they were mad about the song?
Yeah.
Melly also spoke about losing hope during his incarceration and how his faith helped him push through. When you were in jail, did you feel like...
When you were in jail, did you feel like, were you ever at a point where you felt like all hope was lost?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. When I first got locked up, cause I ain't know what they was gonna do. I ain't know. I thought, damn. I was so young. I ain't know. I was like, damn. This before I made "Murder on My Mind," I was like, man, hell nah. They can give me a year. Yeah, some extra time. So, damn, they gonna forget about mine.
With Melly's retrial set for September 10th, 2025, everyone's watching to see what happens with his bail. If the judge grants full bail, Melly could finally get a taste of freedom for the first time since February 2019, though it would come. with strict conditions. But if the request is denied, he'll stay locked up for at least another 4 months until the trial starts. The artist and his story born. Jamel Maurice Demons on May 1st, 1999 in Gifford, Florida. YNW Melly came up in a rough environment. He hasn't talked much about his childhood in interviews, but it's clear things weren't easy. Gifford is a small town about an hour from Orlando, and according to Melly, it's not the kind of place people usually make it out of. As he once, nobody makes it out of there. Nobody even knows about it, I don't feel like. Melly started making music young, around 8th grade, using whatever he could get his hands on. In one interview, he said his first setup was just a mic with a hanger and a wig cap over it, recording in his friend's room. Even then, he was all in on his craft, saying, "I was always making sure my craft was perfect. You know what I had to stay on it." Melly's music taste was surprisingly wide. While he was inspired by big names in rap like Lil Wayne, Future, and Young Thug, he also looked up to artists like Michael Jackson, Adele, Ed Sheeran, and even YouTube. Musician. This mix of influences helped shape his unique, melodic approach to making music, something that made him stand out early on.
I started rapping in 8th grade. I was listening to like Michael Jackson, Lil Wayne, Future, Chris Brown, with Ed Sheeran.
Well, Ed Sheeran.
You know what I'm saying? I think he was out there now.
Melly's unique style and image made him stand out in high school. At first, it was weird, like everybody thought I was weird, but then I started dressing different from everyone else and doing other things. They liked my sound. They liked the way I dressed, you know what I'm saying? His big break came with the release of Murder on My Mind in March 2017. This song later gained a spooky significance because of the murder charges he faced. The track showed off Melly's unique melodic style with sung vocals that felt different from the usual aggressive rap common in Florida at the time. While Murder on My Mind stayed his biggest hit, YNW Melly kept growing his music with projects like his first commercial mixtape I Am in 2018 and We All Shine in 2019. The We All Shine project featured the track Mixed Personalities with Kanye West, a big collab that showed Melly was climbing in the industry just before his arrest. In a 2019 interview, Melly said working with Kanye was awesome and super mega awesome cool, hinting they recorded more than just mixed personalities together. When asked about the robot imagery in the music video, Melly explained it symbolized his multiple personalities.
Basically, it's just weird. It's like 3 heads, 3 different personalities.
This theme of multiple personalities is one that Melly has pushed throughout his career. In the same interview, he claimed to have 6 distinct personalities, though he would only reveal 3, Melly, Melvin, and Marcus. He described Melvin as someone who don't play no games and is confrontational, while Marcus represents the love side of his personality and comes out when Melly is trying to blend in as a regular person.
How many personalities do you have?
6.
6?
Yeah.
What are the 6?
I can only reveal 3.
Some people think Melly's talk about having different personalities might be setting up an insanity defense, but it's important to know he was talking about this long before his murder arrest. It seems like it's a real part of who he is, both as an artist and maybe in his own identity. Since Melly went to jail in February 2019, his career has taken a hit. Though he's been locked up, his music kept coming out here and there. His first studio album, Melly vs. Melvin, dropped in November 2019 while he was behind bars. And another album, Just a Matter of Slime, came out in August 2021. These albums were probably made from songs recorded before he got locked up or during short times he was free. When people ask Melly what makes him different from other Florida rappers, he says, "Ain't trying to be like nobody else. Can tell I'm from Florida, but you can't compare me to nobody." He especially sets himself apart from what he calls Kodak Black Kids, meaning the new artist following the style of another big Florida rapper.
Them niggas Kodak Black kids.
You said what?
They Kodak Black kids. I'm just different. I got my own shit going on.
You do.
Thing,
Sonically,
you know?
for sure.
I ain't trying to be like nobody else. You could tell I'm from Florida, but you can't, you know what I'm saying? You can't compare me to nobody unless you compare me career-wise.
As of May 10th, 2025, YNW Melly has spent over 6 years in jail without being convicted. This super long wait before trial has raised questions about his right to a speedy trial. The case is complicated, and the COVID-19 pandemic caused some delays too. Reports say the conditions Melly has been kept in are really tough. During the bail hearing, his lawyer said he's been in 23-1, which means 23 hours locked up in his cell with only 1 hour out per day. The judge didn't allow this as official evidence yet, but it matches how high-profile inmates are usually treated. If Melly gets bail, his team plans for him to stay with family under strict rules. That includes GPS tracking and 24-hour security. His record label even said they'd pay the bond money, showing they still believe in him despite his long absence from the music scene. News about Melly possibly getting out on bail got fans hyped. On May 6th and 8th, 2025, social media blew up with rumors. Big hip-hop media outlets like XXL and Hip Hop DX said a bail decision was coming soon. Some accounts posted that Melly had already secured a $500,000 bond for one charge, but later it was explained he'd need bonds for all charges before he could actually get out. If Melly does get bail, it would be his first real taste of freedom since February 2019. Since then, the hip-hop world has changed a lot. His peers have blown up, others have faded, and the whole world has been shaped by the pandemic. New tech and culture shifts. Melly has only seen all this through the bars of his cell. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click one of the boxes on your screen to watch more like it.